Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about Witch Hunter and why Witch Hunter is so bad and why I think they should get buffed. So the Path of Exile 2 developers are back into the offices this week and they've said that they're going to do a patch either this week or the next. I'm going to throw my opinion into the ring right now and say, could we please buff Witch Hunter? I do have some ideas on how we could buff Witch Hunter, but I do have some arguments of why Witch Hunter is so bad. However long this takes, I will be spending this entire video talking about why Witch Hunter is doing so bad. So currently in the top 1000, Mercenary is not very popular, but that actually isn't very true. Mercenary is getting more and more and more popular. If we look at the Gemling Legionnaire class here, we can see that we get 105 hits on that class. With over 100 people playing Gemling Legionnaire in the top 1000 right now, it's slowly eking its way up. Obviously, Stormweaver and Deadeye are completely dominant and very likely will get nerfed, but Gemling Legionnaire looks to be doing quite good. On the other hand, Witch Hunter has a mere 11 hits. There are only 11 people playing Witch Hunter in the top 1000, but actually that's not true, because if you notice, one of those search hits is actually just someone's name. So as compared to over the 100 people playing to choose, over the 100 people choosing to play Gemling Legionnaire, 10 people are choosing Legionnaire. That is nearly a 10-to-1 rate at which people is choosing Legionnaire over Witch Hunter. It is not doing good at all. Now, I'm not saying Witch Hunter is the most underperforming class. I'm not saying they're literally the weakest, but certainly they're being less picked than Titan. They're being more picked than Warbringer, but if people want to make videos on those classes, they're free to go make videos on their classes. This video is on Witch Hunter. So I made a handy dandy little list here on why Witch Hunter, I said Gemling, why did I type it like that? Why does Witch Hunter suck? Ascendancy bonuses. I have a whole thing down here. I will go through it, but I want to go through it one at a time. Ascendancy bonuses. Sorcery Ward debuffs you massively and takes 4 points to do one thing. So Sorcery Ward right here, as we can see through it, it increases your armor and evasion. It reduces your armor and evasion by half to give you Sorcery Ward. The next one gives you more armor and evasion for your Sorcery Ward, and the next one only buffs Sorcery Ward. We're putting 4 Ascendancy points into only Sorcery Ward at the cost of half of our defenses. What is Sorcery Ward? Well, as we can see right here, passively manifests a protective barrier which takes elemental damage from hits for you until depleted. The barrier instantly recharges to its full value a short time after it stops taking damage or is fully depleted. So this is effectively an energy shield that will manage to replenish itself even if you're taking health hits, so long as you're not taking hits to your energy shield, which is your Sorcery Ward. Your Sorcery Ward is kind of powerful, I will admit. Unfortunately, it has a downside that you need 4 points invested into it from your Ascendancy, and it reduces your defenses from half. Some people seem to be confused by this and think, well, why don't you go Energy Shield and Sorcery Ward? Because Sorcery Ward scales at how much defense it is stealing from you. It only scales based on your evasion and your armor. This means no, you can't multi-spec or do anything like that into Sorcery Ward. Sorcery Ward requires intensive focus to get good, but still sucks. So let's talk about this. At my character right now, you might be seeing this 4000 shield and you might think, oh my god, that's so massive. Well, some of that's cheating because I've cheated a lot. As you can see right here, I have backup plan. If I've been hit recently, my Sorcery Ward will look more like this. And I have gear that I have min-maxed pretty meticulously into getting very, very high armor and evasion ratings in order to do that. I've also then put all my stats into armor and then gotten a lot of armor bonuses from my amulet, from my jewels, from a lot of that sort of stuff. Despite that, we only have 3,600 on Sorcery Ward, and stealing half the armor which I stack so hard, we are down to 8,100 armor. This makes me quite squishy to any physical damage. It removes all my evasion, and of course it means that I have nothing defending me against chaos damage. I have nothing defending me against ranged projectiles other than the small amount of armors I have. I end up being quite a squishy character. In fact, even on my amulet, I put projectile bulwark in allocation just to try to make me tankier against ranged projectiles. I've put a lot of effort into this. I've put 4 Ascendancies into Sorcery Ward, and I would argue it's kind of okay, but let's compare this to Gemling Legionnaire, which just doubles the value of attributes, giving you double the health from strength, Titan, which gets 15% health, Witch, which just gets the Infernal Hound, which just gives her 20% damage split into the Infernal Hound. None of these have any debuffs. The only one with a debuff is Sorcery Ward. It doesn't even block chaos damage, and I keep making this joke. It doesn't block chaos damage because witch hunters are well known for hunting witches who are well known for not dealing any chaos damage, apparently. So, just developers, I do have a suggestion. Could we remove the armor and evasion penalty from Sorcery Ward? And follow up on that question real quick. Could we maybe give it a base amount for leveling? See, witch hunters, while leveling, Sorcery Ward is very, very, very hard to get to any realistic value that's good. While leveling, you'll frequently have like 700, 800, 900 HP, and your Sorcery Ward will still be down there at 300. It's not until you reach the max area and game maps and you start stacking gear with really good stats on it, it's not until then that you can actually start getting the Sorcery Ward to be quite good. If I did not have this amazing chest piece on, my Sorcery Ward would not be good. With this amazing chest piece, it's doing quite good. I also have an amulet with 52% more armor that I have improved the quality of. We got gems. I think this is about all you can do with Sorcery Ward, and it removes half my armor. I'm just saying to the developers, if you want to make Sorcery Ward like slightly smaller or something, that's fine, I guess. I don't think it would actually be fine, but here's my opinion. Could we start by just removing the armor and evasion penalty and letting witch hunters just put 4 points into Sorcery Ward and it being good there? Now we'll get into why armor and evasion is doing so bad later, but we're just here. Concentration is jank and not really easy to understand. Concentration is this weird effect. I'm gonna try to explain it really quickly. The more damage you do in an enemy, the more concentration they lose. The more concentration they lose, the longer their cooldowns. Then you get an effect up here. You deal more damage to enemies based on their missing concentration. The only problem with this is that you need to have it's really jank. It's not very clear what increasing the cooldowns of enemies does. It's not really clear if this is good. The only decent part is after you do 40% of an enemy's max HP, you get no mercy to be able to deal 30% more damage to them. That's okay, I guess. This is kind of okay, and maybe on paper it seemed fine, but what will very frequently happen is bosses will do some invulnerable phase or go off, and then they'll start regenerating their concentration because they haven't lost any in the last 5 seconds. It's not really clear what increasing enemy cooldowns does. This is one of those weird things you have to like data mine to understand what your ascendancy is even doing, or if it's even working. And then the easy part is probably just saying, well, I do more damage to people I break concentration on, but even that, enemies very easily can go into an invulnerable phase or some weird phase and just totally regain their concentration. Now over here, Decimating Strike and Culling Strike are very specific builds. You can see me using Culling Strike, but that's because I'm using a very rapid firing weapon. For average person, these do not do much. We've all seen Culling Strike. I'm not going to explain it. It's not very good. Decimating Strike, after a 4-point investment, does actually get pretty good. Hits against enemies that are at full HP remove between 5 and 30% health. This is way too random, by the way. Could we just make it like 15 to 20% so it's a bit more consistent? I'm not sure why one of the biggest, hardest hitting abilities in the game could either do a mere 5% or 30% of an entire boss's HP. It's a little bit RNG. I don't really like it, but either way, to get these to be useful on normal enemies just in a pack, you would have to kind of be building very rapid firing things to use it. At either rate, it is niche, and I'm kind of okay with it because it's like, it's niche, it's there, it's fine, right? Like if you want to use it, you can. If you don't want to use it, you aren't forced to. But it's just, it's very, very niche. And 4 ascendancies in, especially when these are 35% increased damage with hits against enemies that are at low life, but you already have Culling Strike. So that kind of conflicts with each other, right? It's kind of jank. Now here we have, there's not enough weapons to use Weapon Master. I'm giving Weapon Master the benefit of a doubt. This allows more skill points to become weapon set skill points, allowing you to swap them between 2 weapons. I am giving this the benefit of a doubt. This will probably be better in the future once more weapons come out, and maybe Witch Hunter can do a crossbow sword build. I don't know. Weapon swapping right now is kind of jank, and to be honest with you, most people are just map clearing off 1 ability spam, so realistically, I don't think this will be that good, but I'm giving it the benefit of a doubt. Now over here, we have probably the best one, 10% area of effect, and then you have a 10% chance for any enemy you kill to explode, dealing 100% of their maximum life to every enemy around them. This is actually pretty good. This allows you to get actually decent pack clear. It does take into the game, like you need to get into maps and you need to get monster density up, but once you do, Zealous Inquisition is actually quite good. The animation is really cool. It's thematic. It's the one thing in this class that makes me feel like I chose Witch Hunter. I actually really like Zealous Inquisition. I'm giving this like my thumbs up right here. This is good. Love this. Do more of this, developers. I actually think it's really cool. I very much like it. In fact, I put a note right there. I like it. Now let's talk about armor and evasion. As we've seen here, the primary defense for Witch Hunter seems to be armor and evasion. Being as they are pictured with a crossbow, and crossbows are strength and dexterity, it is very much assumed that we are going to be using armor and evasion. You can even see the Witch Hunter pictures using the armor evasion gear in the game. So what is the problem with armor and evasion? Now, I'm going to put this first because a lot of PoE1 players are going to come at me and they're going to go, Mrrr, and I don't want them coming at me and going, Mrrr. So let's just get this out of the way first. Iron Reflexes was changed. It does not factor in evasion boosting anymore. You can see right here, I have Iron Reflexes. If I was to choose a node over here that gives me an evasion rating, will you see my armor go up? If this is Path of Exile 1, yes. If this is Path of Exile 2, no. Evasion literally does nothing. These double nodes here literally do nothing if I have Iron Reflexes. I just want to get that out of the way first. Iron Reflexes was a major component of strength dexterity, and it no longer works the way that you think. And because it no longer works the way that you think, you need to rethink how you think about it, because what you think is no longer applicable in Path of Exile 2. I just want to get that out of the way because people are going to go down in the comments and they're going to say, well, actually, don't you know? But no, it doesn't work that way anymore, okay? Armor and evasion do not work together fundamentally. Whereas energy shield and evasion can kind of work together with you evading some of the hits and then you energy shielding some of the other hits. So it kind of works together. We have armor and energy shield also kind of work together, with the armor making the energy shield tankier. So the evasion makes the energy shield better. The armor makes the energy shield better. Evasion and armor literally do nothing for each other. By splitting your focus between the two of them, you're making your armor super weak and you're making your evasion unreliable. In the past, this was made up by just going Iron Reflexes or stacking so much of it that eventually got good, but you can't really do this in a game which A, expects you to go Sorcery Ward and reduce your defenses to half, or B, you can't do it because Iron Reflexes, this basically becomes a 12% armor node, which I will get into a second here. You do not have a spirit skill to give synergy. Many other skills that are dual spec, I'm assuming strength, intelligence will get their own. But for now, when we look at these spirit gems and we look at them at the top right here, we can see that if you're going a pure intelligence build, you can get Grim Feast. If you are doing an intelligence dexterity build, you can get Ghost Dance. So Energy Shield gets good here. Energy Shield actually has a second one here. Half the nodes in the game are for int users. Devs are very biased towards mages right now. It's pretty obvious. But so here we have Energy Shield, another Energy Shield, and here we have, if you're going Evasion Energy Shield. Over here we have one, it's not good, but it is one for full armor. We also have one here for full evasion. You might notice a problem here. There's nothing for armor evasion. No, that's right, there's not a single skill. It is the one skill in game, the one defense and line, I don't know what you want to call it, defense system? I don't even know. There's a one defense system currently in game that does not have a skill, a spirit skill, that will help it out. This means it just kind of doesn't really have anything backing it up. Now, I'm not saying scavenge plating is good. It is quite bad, in fact, but it just doesn't have one. They didn't really care about it. This means your 12% defenses nodes are also just a mere 12%. With Iron Will, these effectively red get 24% armor, which made them good. But right now, whereas the other classes get to have they get to have these 15% defense nodes, you get a mere 12% defense node. You can say, oh, but it's affecting two stats, so it's like 24. That's not how it works. A percent is a percent. If I'm increasing my defenses by 12%, that's less than other people increasing them by 15%. You could argue that I think up here you have the evasion and energy shield at 12%. That's fine because these things kind of work together. They actually have synergy. Armor evasion do not have synergy. Evasion makes your energy shield stronger, but evasion does not make your armor stronger. So it makes no sense for these to be down here at 12% still. These should be boosted to 15%. In addition to that, you only get 20% of your notables instead of 25 to 30%. Going into this issue even further, and I will have to talk about the stun threshold here later. I just remembered that we're gonna have to talk about stun threshold because this is very important. Your notables have a mere 20% armor and evasion, whereas many other notables, including the one I attuned on my amulet over here, some have 30%, some have 25%. At either rate, they have much better than 20%. So this goes into the other issue. You're just scaling your defenses worse than other classes. Most notables are just laughably undertuned compared to other defenses. So whereas strength has this insane, you get 200% of armor against critical hits and 15 strength, over here 25% more armor and then 50% of your base armor is added to your stun threshold. Over here for Witch Hunter we have 20% stun threshold and 20% armor and evasion. We have some amazing real killers over here where, let's look at this one. Gain ailment threshold equal to the lowest of evasion and armor on your boots. Gain stun threshold equal to the lowest of armor and evasion on your helmet. Yeah, some of them aren't so bad. Get 1 evasion rating per 1 armor and equipped gloves is not that bad, but leather gloves gets completely blown out of the water by things like heavy armor. Heavy armor just takes a dump on it. It's not even close. General's binding seems good on paper until you realize it effectively reads get 4% more defenses. It's fine, but like this is not the killer node that armor evasion needed to continue to scale. And again, as I've mentioned, iron reflexes just does not work the way that it used to. Stun threshold. Let's talk about stun threshold. Okay, currently, as of right now, armor evasion has the weakest stun threshold in the entire game. They can't really get their stun threshold up by any reasonable amount. Let's just look at strong chin. That one's, even on my giga boosted helmet right now, this would be 484 stun threshold. If we look into other classes, they get stun thresholds like 50% of the base armor from your equipment and the armor, the evasion shield, energy shield slash blah, 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 blah. Those ones get the absolutely incredible one over here. I have totally lost it. Where is it? It's right. Okay, you know what? I'm blind. There we go. Energy shield gets the absolutely insane. Get 20% of maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold and 20% increased stun threshold when at full life. These things obviously are insanely goodly at synergizing with energy shield and give them infinite stun threshold. What is stun? A lot of people don't know stun in the game is based on your current life. The more life you have, the more stun threshold you have. That's why when you're playing a warrior, you only really get stunned when you've been hit by like a truck. I don't know a better way to put it. Warriors basically never get stunned. Life-based characters especially don't really get stunned. Strength dexterity gets a little bit of stun, which is good because they get a bit of health from their strength, but then they get the weakest stun threshold nodes. Now, Ranger is, of course, I think Ranger has the weakest stun threshold of all, but because they're so long ranged and they do so much more damage and they have so much more movement speed from absolutely incredible notables like Blur, this means that Ranger generally just outranges enemies anyway and is pretty good at that, okay? Energy shield users, of course, they have the lowest health, so you might think, aha, well, they're the weakest, but actually, they've got that notable up here that's just really, really, really good at resisting things. Witch Hunter gets stunned all the time. Witch Hunter gets constantly stunned. If you ever watch me play this class, you will see me get stun locked to death pretty frequently. I had a mob run up and do a 3-hit combo, and the first hit stunned me, so you just stun, and I'm dead. And it's okay, cool. It just, the stun threshold of the armor evasion isn't great, particularly because the notables giving you stun threshold are really laughably incompetent at their job. Now let's talk about notables in the mercenary area. So this just generally deals with mercenary as a whole, but whereas Gemling Legionnaire can use other builds or do other strategies, Witch Hunter does seem pushed into playing with a crossbow. I mean, that's their whole identity, that's what they want, and using armor evasion. So we kind of need to weigh these notables here against other classes. While you can travel, the more you travel you do, the weaker you are. If all ascendancies were balanced, then having to travel would just make you way weaker because you're wasting points traveling. So you'd want the nodes in your starting area to be good. Well, how good are they, in fact? Most mercenary nodes are just weaker than other classes for some reason that I can't really figure out. Some of my favorite examples are you could get a 25% chance for projectiles to pierce enemies within 3 meters of you. Or you could just get 50% chance to pierce. Or you could get 15% increased projectile speed. Sorry, 15% reduced projectile speed to get 20% more damage. Woo! Yay! Yippee! Over here we have increased projectile speed and area of effect for attacks, which is not bad. Over here we have reduced attack speed to get projectile damage and stun buildup. Over here we have 16% projectile damage to get increased accuracy at enemies at short range. Well, I can argue that these are between ranger and mercenary. The problem is the notables more on the ranger side are blatantly better. How much better? Well, over here, once again, we have 50% chance to pierce an enemy and a 15% chance to pierce right there as well. Or we can get a 15% chance to pierce an enemy and a 30% chance and a 10% chance to chain. And this is probably one of the best ones, by the way. This is one of the best ones from mercenary, and it's just an inferior version of another class, which is just kind of annoying. Over here, of course, we have things like Falcon Technique, giving 1% attack speed per 15 dex, which just blows the pants off of anything that these can do. In fact, a major problem seems to be that these were designed for builds that are either not implemented or just not implemented very well. We have, if I was to search bleed, we can see how many of these nodes are designed for bleed. We have bleed and critting down here, bleed here, and bleed heal. If we look at ailments, in fact, we can see that crossbows were very much designed with ailments in mind. So we have ailments down here, we have duration of damaging ailments, chance to ignite, we got bleeding, we got chance to ignite, break armor, blah, 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 blah. Why are we running into a problem then? The problem with the mercenary tree seems to be armor break is a very underutilized and pretty bad mechanic. Bleed is also based on doing single large big hits, not shooting people with lots of arrows. Bleed is best used on big mace attacks, not unfortunately mercenary attacks. Yeah, certainly not fast shooting mercenaries. Most of your nodes are torn between bleed, crit, elemental, and melee and range. So you got things like here we got two-handed, here we got dual wielding, here we got one-handed. Over here we've got gain accuracy equal to your strength. We've got just so much crap going for everywhere. Here's one-handed and two-handed melee weapons. Here's melee build-up. Here's projectiles over here. Basically, the mercenary tree is everywhere. It's doing everything. Instead of your nodes just giving stuff like physical damage, which could be used by a lot, or melee damage, which maybe could be used by a lot. Even once mercenary starts getting into some other specs that could start here, like maybe duelist, you're still being torn between two-handed, dual wielding, one-handed, projectiles, bleeding, igniting, elementing. The tree very much seems designed for like 3 or 4 different classes, whereas other classes do have different things they can do. They generally focus on an idea, I'm going to call it that way. The problem with the mercenary trees, you have to keep traveling around to reach good nodes. It doesn't, even warrior generally can travel along this path right here and find most of their good nodes along right here, because this is just like generally the melee damage area, right? Gemlings on the other hand, or I shouldn't say gemlings, witch hunters on the other hand, as you've seen, I had to do this weird traveling to just get around, which just makes me so weak because I have to go to these nodes that are actually good and they're just all over, they're just everywhere. So that doesn't help me at all. Additionally, last up here, the crossbow notables are lackluster. The last point I'm going to make here on Witch Hunter is, and again, Witch Hunter's using a crossbow. You're intended to use a crossbow. Like, this is what the developers had in mind. A lot of these notables for Witch Hunter are just really bad. How bad are they? So here's the problem. And I know you do need to have crit on your weapon to make this work. I'm just trying to make a point. If I was to put 4 points right here into crossbows and crossbow damage, you can see currently my damage is 2,800,352. My damage has gone down to 2,800,174 because I don't have crit on my weapon. See, these notables reduce your attack speed by 15% to give you 80% crit damage. But the problem is, if you don't have crit on your weapon, this is a downgrade. It is a direct downgrade. I cannot think of many notables in this game which can actually reduce your damage. In particular, if we're looking at the weapon mastery, this should be big for crossbows. Crossbow users should be loving to grab this, but instead they don't. Additionally, up here we have full salvo. Increased damage with crossbows for each type of ammunition fired in the past 10 seconds. At best, I see most crossbow users using 2 types of ammo. Highest I've ever seen it go is 3. That's still a 75% increased damage bonus. And the problem is that is still not really that good. 75% damage is certainly a very high increased, but it's only with crossbows, and it's only if you're doing a specific build. Try swapping between 3 different ammo types. It's very hard to really get this to work. And down here, you have to be doing a crit build. It generally means that the crossbow node here runs into some serious dang issues where, like, I have to be doing very specific builds to get the crossbow trees to work for crossbows. Now, just to be clear here, crossbows only have 5% crit by default. In order to get a good mapping crossbow, I would need to buy a very expensive crit crossbow. If I was in the campaign, there's not a chance I would get crit at all. In fact, it's highly unlikely I'll get a crossbow with crit, meaning that until I reach endgame maps and buy a good weapon with crit, or just RNG one very luckily, power shots will reduce my damage for 4 points the whole time. I don't understand the game's balance when it comes to that, but that is certainly not how it should have been balanced. I understand what the devs are going for, single big crits, and then you crit that and you use it with the bleeding crit node. But again, the problem is, why is the crossbow node here and then the bleeding crit node is over here, and I'm having to do all this traveling once again, and I'm having to build the specific way. And then meanwhile I get other classes that are like, I do lots of damage, and when I do damage it does more damage, and then crit and shotgun and bleed and crossbow, and you're just like, okay. So that's why Witch Hunter sucks. Please buff Witch Hunter. Now look, I know you're not going to go through and like buff all their notables and redo everything. I know you're not going to do that. What am I asking for in the short term? In the short term, rebalance Sorcery Ward around you not having an armor penalty. Remove the armor penalty entirely, rebalance the numbers, because it does scale on your armor, it does scale on your evasion, so we can rebalance it to work on these new buff numbers. Remove this penalty entirely. If I put 4 points into Sorcery Ward, then it should be good. It should not feel like a side grade, okay? Do that one thing right now as a band-aid fix. Do that right now, and I bet you Sorcerer, well, at the very least, Witch Hunter will probably become playable. I don't know about like top tier, but I think they would be playable. I think people would like playing with them. Right now I am doing +4 bosses, just to be clear. I'm doing +4 bosses. I actually just died to +2 Zealth, because unfortunately Zealth does physical damage, almost pure physical damage. A lot of people don't know just how little damage in the game is actually elemental. Zealth almost does pure physical damage, and unfortunately I had Sorcery Ward on and he 2-shot me. So that kind of sucked, especially considering without Sorcery Ward, I would have 16,000 armor, which I think is a fairly decent amount, considering I need to get that through these very shitty passives here. I've used my amulet, I've used my 2 rubies, I've tried to boost my armor to try to get my armor up so I can get my Sorcery Ward up. I've tried to do this as best as I can, and I'm still squishy because my class for some reason is losing 50% of our defenses just so that we can get proper defenses, which is a very confusing thing to have happen. And look, I understand I've just listed a lot of issues. I'm just saying short term, remove the armor and evasion rating penalty of obsessive rituals. Remove that right now. Just give people Sorcery Ward. No other class eats such a ludicrous penalty. You don't see Witch when she gets Hellhound. It's not like, okay, the Hellhound takes 20% damage for you, but now you lose 50% of your energy shield, right? Like, that would be absurd. No one would take it. And now welcome to Sorcery Ward. Do you see the problem here? Okay. That's all I have to say. Please buff Witch Hunter. It's a very fun class. I really enjoy playing them. Please buff them. But all of you, thank you for listening. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody. And as always, I hope you have a great rest of your day.